But I wonder, Sparrow, can you live with this? Can you condemn an innocent man, a friend, to a lifetime of solitude in your name while you roam free?
Yep, I'm good with it. Shall we seal it in blood? I mean, ink.
Hello, and welcome back to more Films Under Constant Critique, where we take a look at films, some good, some bad, and some downright awful. I'm Bongo Baikov, joined by our host, Maverick, Dren, Zaria. This week, we are taking a look at the 2006 film Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest.
Oh, wait, I thought we were doing Dead Men Tell No Tales.
Oh no, we're doing the fifth movie.
Or are we doing the 1995 movie Dead Man, which also has Johnny Depp in it?
Oh, really? Huh.
Yeah, I wonder why that happens.
It's got Iggy Pop in it as well.
Yeah, Iggy Pop's in it, Robert Mitchum's in it, John Hurt, I think, is in it.
Yeah.
It's a really weird movie, and Neil Young did the soundtrack, which is just blaring electric guitars the whole time. Yeah, so Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest was released July 7th, 2006. It cost $225 million and made over $1 billion.
Which is pretty impressive.
Yeah, you forget how huge these movies were at the time. And it was the highest grossing movie of 2006.
That sounds about right.
I guess that... What else was out in 2006?
The Da Vinci Code, Casino Royale,
Superman
Cars.
Returns. Another movie we did on the podcast.
Yeah.
X-Men The Last Stand. Yeah, I can kind of see why the competition that year was...
Are you telling me that you're surprised it beat Night at the Museum?
Actually, yeah, that does surprise me. Why didn't Night at the Museum make like $2 billion?
It only made like $500,000.
How much did Battle of the Smithsonian make? Oh, that made even less than that. $413 million. That's a little surprising.
What did the last one make? $360 million.
Anyway, I forgot about the third one. Is that do you want to do that trilogy next or something?
Hey, I'd be down. And any reason to rewatch the first one.
Yeah, I saw the second one in the theater with you, actually.
I have vague memories of that, yeah.
Anyway. Alright, so... Dead Man's Chest was shot back-to-back with the third movie, which was an interesting decision.
Because they're basically just one really long movie when you put them together.
And I no doubt that decision was prompted because of Lord of the Rings.
If only they did that with the Star Wars sequels.
If only. So yeah, this movie has a lot of unresolved plot threads at the end. And that's why a lot of people refer to the first three Pirates movies as a trilogy. So, I know you have a few times. And until doing this rewatch, I hadn't really considered that, but now I'm going like, yeah, I kind of see why, because the last two movies don't really have much connection to the movies before. They feel more like standalone movies, which I guess makes them easier to ignore for people that don't like them. So, the tagline was, Captain Jack is back.
Would you like to hear the Netflix description?
Oh, God.
With the help of Will Turner and Elizabeth Swann, happy-go-lucky troublemaker Captain Jack Sparrow works his way out of a blood debt with the ghostly Davy Jones, hoping to avoid eternal damnation.
Happy-go-lucky troublemaker. I love it. Yeah, with like the Captain Jack is back thing. I'm surprised they didn't reference like the Billy Joel song Captain Jack. Okay, so initial thoughts. Do you want to go first on that, or?
Yeah, so I watched this, I'm not sure how long after the first one, but there actually was a bit of time between when I saw the first one and when I watched this one.
Same
just thinking
here,
back
actually,
on it.
now that I think about it, but sorry, keep going.
But yeah, not, when I think back to it, I remember that this one was always quite a bit darker when compared to the first one. Both in terms of like story overall and just it was kind of shot. A lot of it was in the dark. But I will say, upon rewatching it, it is dark, but it's like well lit enough that you can at least tell what's going on, which I'm thankful for.
Yeah, unlike something like The Batman, or a worse example, AVPR.
Oh yeah, no, AVPR is probably one of the worst offenders of that I've ever seen.
Like with AVPR, you might as well just turn the lights off in the room and like stare at a wall or something.
Yeah, and I just from the previous times I watched, there's a lot of this film that I really love. I love Davy Jones as a villain. I love seeing Bootstrap Bill and just getting more, basically just more lore, fleshing out the world with him and with Will. And upon rewatching it, I think I still have a lot of the same thoughts that I did before. It's not very often that my opinion just remains completely unchanged from when I last watched the film. I will say it's not all entirely positive. I think one thing that I'm not a huge fan of is this sort of forced love triangle throughout the movie.
Yeah.
But we'll get to that more.
Would you say you liked? Do you like the first one more or this one more?
I think I like the first one more. It hits a better balance, I feel, than this one does.
That tends to be the prevailing opinion, yeah.
Yeah, and then of course, there's a lot more Barbossa in the first one.
Yeah, you really like Barbossa, huh?
Yeah, no, Barbossa's the best character.
Yeah, he has a great laugh in the first movie. That was something I was rewatching some scenes from the first movie because I had to find like clips for the audio for some of the lines, and like that scene where he like turns into a skeleton and he like laughs, that made me...
That's a really good one.
Yeah.
What are you looking at? Back to work!
So it had been years since I last saw this movie, but when I first saw it, I remembered really enjoying it. And of the Pirates sequels, it's definitely the one I remembered the most, and the one I remembered being the best. And rewatching it, I still really enjoyed it. I actually think it's almost as good as like the first one. Maybe even better in some aspects, but we'll get to that. It's fun to watch. The action scenes in this are fantastic. I actually think I actually think this has better action scenes than the first movie does. Like, there's some really good ones.
Yeah, especially thinking about the one that we get towards the end. But
the plot was a little bit confusing at first because they're setting up a lot of stuff in this movie.
Yeah,
but once I got settled in, I started to get into it. It's a pretty good sequel. I was worried the quality would drop quite a lot, but it didn't seem like that much of a drop, really. Just that it's a little bit less focused than the first movie is the problem, but we'll get to that. But I like that this one added more weird fantasy elements. and stuff to it. Like, for all its faults, it still retains a unique style like the first one had.
Yeah.
It's nice watching a blockbuster film that's actually creative. I mean, and not just something off an assembly line. We don't get too many of these nowadays, do we?
I know. We tend not to watch a lot of those on the podcast either. We get stuck with, like, Mortal Kombat Annihilation.
Jesus Christ. Why did... for some reason, I had a feeling that was going to be the one you mentioned. I've been doing a lot of thinking. It actually Mortal Kombat Annihilation. I think that's the second worst movie we've done on the podcast.
It's pretty bad. It's not quite as bad as Alien Origin, but it's down there.
Because I was struggling to decide whether it was worse than Alien Resurrection, and I think it's a little bit worse because at least Alien Resurrection was trying to be a movie, and it looks more like a movie than Mortal Kombat Annihilation, but that would be getting off topic. I remember you jokingly calling the first 3 movies of this series the original trilogy. And coincidentally, this is the one where I started seeing parallels to the original Star Wars trilogy. Especially with the ending, like the way they did the ending and stuff. But that begs the question, does that make the 4th and 5th movies the Star Wars prequels or the Star Wars sequels?
I'm gonna say the sequels.
I would too, because
they're a bit too just disjointed.
And they have different directors working on them.
Oh, yeah.
As well, so... I mentioned in the previous podcast that I couldn't remember the plot to this or World's End. And now I remember why. Because they're too fucking complicated. There's a little bit too much going on at some points. Like, that is one thing I will say. The script quality went down a little bit with this one. But again, I had fun revisiting it. It was fun to watch. So I'm not complaining too much. We have a lot of returning cast members from the first movie. I think does every cast member for the first movie return for this?
Pretty close. We've got Norrington back. We've got Will. We've got Elizabeth.
Even Barbossa is back. You know?
Yeah, Barbossa shows up for a little bit. We have Gibbs. We have a lot of, like, the minor crew characters, like the guy with the parrot.
Even Mackenzie Crook returns. You know, the guy whose eye keeps popping out.
Yeah. There's quite a few cast members.
The main stars, obviously, you know, Johnny Depp, Orlando Bloom, and Keira Knightley.
Yeah.
A lot of people weren't happy that they came back, but anyway, I forgot that Stellan Skarsgård was in this.
Yeah, no, I did too.
Which I was glad to see him. He's a really good actor. He's part of why I gave Andor a chance, actually. Because I saw that clip of him giving that speech, and I'm like, oh, damn, this actually looks like a really good show.
I know, it's strange.
That's the best Star Wars show we've gotten out of Disney. How is that possible?
It's the best Star Wars thing in general we've gotten out of Disney.
Yeah, that's true, actually, yeah. Because it's better than all the movies they did, yeah.
Yeah.
And Stellan Skarsgård, he's also really good in Dune as the Baron. I also forgot that Moneypenny was in this from the Daniel Craig ones.
Yeah. Naomi Harris.
And Bill Nighy is in this, and we'll definitely be talking about his character.
Yeah, no, he sort of steals the show in this one.
Even though you don't technically see him. Because he's all covered up by CGI. We have a returning composer.
Is it the guy from the last one, or
No.
No, wow. So this is when they brought on Hans Zimmer.
So he does the music for 2, 3, and 4 of this series.
Okay.
I could not find Roger Ebert's review, but I did find your buddy Leonard Maltin's review.
What did he give the first one again? Was it 2.5?
2.5.
This one he's given 2. I can feel it.
Ding ding ding, we have a winner. Yep. 2 stars.
This man. He brings me physical pain.
Lumbering sequel has no real tale to tell and drains the charm out of its 3 lead characters who were so much fun to watch in the first movie. Some good action/stunt set pieces can't compensate for this cheerless, seemingly endless voyage. And he probably said the same thing about the third one. At least I haven't rewatched that one yet, but from the reviews, that one looks really gloomy. So the main plot of this one, Dead Man's Chest, involves pirates.
Really? I couldn't have guessed.
A man dies, and there's a chest. That's also okay. So, Elizabeth and Will get arrested for helping Jack Sparrow escape.
Jack busts out of a prison.
Yeah, but then they let Will go if he helps them find Jack. They have to go on a journey to find a treasure chest so they can stop Davy Jones, because the chest has Jones' heart in it because of a curse. The plot is a little complicated.
Yeah. And Jack wants the chest so he can get Davy Jones to leave him alone, who gave him the black spot.
Why won't these ghost pirates just leave him alone?
I know, think about how unlucky he is. He had to deal with skeleton pirates, who are his mutinied crew.
That's like every movie of this series is he has to deal with like a pirate who has like an undead crew.
Yeah, because in the first one it's skeletons. In the second and third it's like these weird like zombie sea creature guys. In the fourth one it's just like voodoo zombies. And then the fifth one it's a bunch of Spanish ghosts.
Yeah, Spanish ghosts led by Javier Bardem. What is up with that fucking hair in that movie? That is so weird.
I would just leave the Caribbean at that point.
Leave the Caribbean, yeah.
Because, like, there's too many of those guys running around.
There really are, yeah. Oh, poor Jack needs a vacation. He should just, like, hang out on an island and drink rum all day. Like he was trying to do in the first movie. Okay, so let's start with the pros. My first note is, why doesn't Disney make more weird shit like this?
Yeah.
So, I think Jack Sparrow, again, is really good in this movie.
Yes. And this time he feels much more like a main character than he did in the first one.
He definitely is. He's actually driving the plot forward
Yeah.
this time around. I like his introduction, where he gets tossed off a boat in a coffin, and then a crow lands on it, and he shoots it with a gun while he's still inside.
And he starts steering the coffin with like a leg bone of somebody else in there.
That's definitely a Jack Sparrow
Escape.
Yeah. And also, this movie was definitely darker than the first one, which I could tell right from the beginning, because, like...
Yeah, because you watch the two of the main characters, you know, the love interests from the first movie get arrested, followed by Gibbs singing Dead Man's Chest, while you watch a dude's eye get pecked out by a crow.
Yeah, I was about to say, there's like a guy getting his eye pecked out. I'm like, Jesus Christ. Is this gonna turn into the Birds? And also just the lighting and color grading is darker in this one, too. I like the callback to the first movie where Jack Sparrow holds up an empty rum bottle and says, "Why is the rum always
Is the
gone?"
rum always gone?
Sort of like in Die Hard 2 when he's like, how could the same shit happen to the same
shit
guy
happened to
twice?
the same man twice. We get introduced to Stellan Skarsgård's character.
And I like
And-
his introduction is
Yeah.
where Jack, like when Jack sees him the first time, he says, "If this were a dream, there'd be rum," and then Bootstrap gives him a bottle of rum. I thought that was pretty good.
And you can really tell that they stepped up the effects in this film
Oh yes.
quite a bit, because
I was about to say with this one, the CGI in this is much better than in the first.
yeah,
movie.
it actually still holds up like really well.
Especially Davy Jones. Like,
Yes.
that might actually be the best CGI I've ever seen in a movie.
Like, that had to take a long time to get that to look right.
This movie's what, like almost 20 years old, and yeah, it's still like some of those effects still look really like all the mutant fishmen, like the guy with the hammerhead shark head.
I like the guy that has the hermit crab head.
Oh yeah, it like gets knocked off and like
He has to crawl away using his hermit crab
that's
head.
pretty good, yeah. And like the makeup job on Bootstrap Bill's really good too.
Oh
Like,
yeah,
I just like
because he's
how-
got
I like how just slimy and gross this movie looks. Like
Yeah.
it looks like just it fits the movie just perfectly for
Yeah.
what they're going for.
And I really like how they designed Bootstrap as well, because, you know, from what we heard about him in the first movie, is they essentially sunk him to the bottom of the ocean. And so he looks like bloated, like a corpse that's been underwater, and he's got like all these like barnacles growing all over him. He always looks wet.
God, that must be such a pain in the ass being undead and being trapped at the bottom of the ocean. Oh my.
Yeah, no, that would suck.
There's also a Treasure Island reference in this movie. Because Jack gets the black spot put on him.
Yep. And Jack's not very happy about that.
Yeah. Yep.
Because basically it just sends the Kraken after him, which,
Oh, that's another thing we should definitely talk about. The Kraken in this movie.
oh yeah.
Every time the Kraken showed up, it was definitely a highlight. Like, I like the build up.
Oh, yeah.
The first scene, you don't even see it. It's just a boat getting swallowed into the ocean.
And then you hear someone talking about it, and it's like, oh, it's got suckers large enough to suck your face off. And then later, when you see what happens when the Kraken attacks, you see somebody's face has been sucked off.
Yep. And it's just destroying all these boats and stuff. It's insane. You can definitely tell they spent a lot of money on this, because it feels just huge and action-packed and epic. Like, one of the main parts, like, one of the main takeaways I always had of this movie was this part where Jack is on the island and he's getting chased by cannibals.
It's such a fun opening to the movie.
It doesn't really impact the plot that much, but it is very entertaining.
It is, because you have, it's, when you think about it, it's really dark, but, like, they make it really fun. Because, you know, Jack and the whole crew of the Black Pearl, as well as Will, are about to become feasts for a bunch of cannibals, but they think Jack is their chief.
Definitely a scenario that feels like something from like a 30s or 40s adventure movie.
Yeah.
Like King Kong or something.
I like how he tries to run away, gets caught, and starts acting like he was just going to season himself.
Yeah, that was pretty good. He's got like these, like, a bunch of eyes painted on his face, including on his, like, eyelids, too.
Yeah.
They're just weird. There's this great chase scene where he's just running around. He's, like, all tied up and has these, like, poles sticking out. He's like doing like flips from cliffs. It's like
And there's these people that start throwing fruit at him, and so they're making just like a kebab out of him.
the stunt work in this movie is fucking insane. I love it. And they show some good locations too.
Oh yeah.
Like that island was a good spot to shoot. And the designs of the ships I really like.
Especially the Flying Dutchman. It's always storming aboard the Dutchman. You have all of the different, weird-looking crew members.
And also just weird stuff growing off of it, too. Like,
yeah.
it definitely looks like a ghost ship. Very good set design. I like the introduction of the Mackenzie Crook and the...
Oh, yeah.
They're like on a boat with a dog, and I guess they got out of jail somehow.
And Mackenzie's like trying to read a Bible saying he's trying to save his soul. The other guy's like, you can't read.
It's the Bible. You get credit for trying. I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah.
I guess people liked these two enough that they decided to give them bigger roles in this one.
Yeah, no, they're pretty important. They give a lot of exposition throughout the movie.
There's like a part where even the undead monkey came back in this one because it like steals his eye at one point.
Yeah.
And he's chasing it around. It's so funny. It's basically just like, oh, those characters you liked in the first movie, let's give you more of them. And like,
yeah. They even brought back Norrington, who was kind of a minor antagonist in the first film.
I was surprised, actually. I would have figured they would have killed him off or something, but...
And he's got a fairly important role, too, especially once you go into the third movie.
It was a weird decision to bring him back. And also, he kind of becomes a pirate, too.
Yeah. I like the scene where Jack's trying to recruit 100 different men to his ship to pay his soul debt to Davy Jones. So some of the lines there are pretty funny. Like the one pirate comes up and he's like, I've wanted to spend an eternity out in sea. And Mr. Gibbs is just like, sooner than you think, sign here.
That's pretty good, yeah. There's also this chase. Will and some of the others are also on the island, and they're like stuck in these like skeleton hamster wheel things.
Yeah.
The beginning of this movie it was so crazy. Like I remember right before watching it just going, oh, but what if it doesn't hold up? And it got to like scenes like that, and I'm like, no, this is fun. I'm enjoying this. I do have to like that stunt work though when Jack is like jumping from cliff to cliff. That is
Oh yeah.
Oh my god, that's insane. That's like shit that Buster Keaton would have done right there. It's also the beginning of this movie sort of reminded me of Temple of Doom a little bit. The stuff with the bridge and like the nets and stuff.
Oh yeah, a little bit.
Prepare to meet Kali in hell.
Another new character that I really like is Tia Dalma.
She's the witch, right?
Yeah. Kind of like the voodoo queen.
Voodoo, yeah, that's another thing. This movie has voodoo in it. Also like Temple of Doom. It makes more sense here than in Temple of Doom, though, because Temple of Doom is in India. Yeah, she was an interesting character. Definitely a very memorable, like her look was definitely very memorable.
Yeah.
For sure.
And especially the location that they have to travel to, they like go deep into the swamp in order to find her.
I like how they offer her the undead monkey.
Yeah.
That was pretty good.
I like how Jack shows off it's undead too. He pulls it out and just goes, look, shoots it.
Yeah. I'm glad that this one retained some of the dark humor here in
Yeah.
from the first movie. When I was watching the beginning, it was sort of reminding me of like the beginning of Return of the Jedi, where they basically spend the first third of it rescuing Han Solo.
Except this one, it's spending the first third of the movie getting all the main characters in the same location.
And then, like, the rest of the movie doesn't have much to do with that at all.
Yeah.
So, like, it feels sort of weird, you know? But hey, that's what film serials are like sometimes. What was the witch's name again?
Tia Dalma.
Yeah, that's right. She, like, uses the term know me in a sexual context in this movie, which I wasn't expecting to hear that. Interesting. And she's talking to Will when she says that too, which is weird. A lot of great character designs in this. Just because you have got a lot of weird characters in this. You want to make them look as gross and strange as possible.
Yeah, even bringing up Norrington again, he's like super like just pale and disheveled throughout this movie.
Yeah, he's got like a bunch of dirt on him or something.
Yeah.
I didn't even recognize him at first.
Yeah.
And he has a beard too. He has a beard.
Yeah. No, very disheveled.
It's amazing how much the lack of a powdered wig changes a person's appearance.
I mean, we also see Governor Swan at one point without a wig, and I like didn't recognize him at first.
I forgot about that. I mean, I've seen him without one because I've seen Brazil and Tomorrow Never Dies, so and Ronin. But I think definitely the standout as far as like the effects and like the design of this movie is definitely Davy Jones.
Yes.
Like, that's a very, very impressive special effect.
Yeah, he's got a really great design too. He's kind of like part octopus, part crab.
Yeah. And like the movements of the tentacles too, like it feels like it's alive, you know, and like it's actually moving.
Yeah.
Like they took a lot of care like into that thing, you can tell.
And I also just love his voice.
And maybe part of why the CGI isn't, like, the flaws in it aren't as noticeable is because a lot of his scenes are in the dark. That might help.
Yeah. I do know that in the next movie, he's in the light quite a bit more.
Okay. Just the designs of all the his crew members, they just look so disgusting instead of like these mutated sea creatures.
I also love Jones's voice.
And like those tentacles are supposed to be his beard too, which is very which is very interesting.
Do you feel this? Do you feel that dark abyss? All your deeds laid bare, all your sins punished. I can offer you an escape.
It's exactly what I would expect an evil octopus crab man to sound like.
An evil octopus crab man. I like his introduction scene too, where he's just like smoking a pipe really close to the guy and breathing on him. He's definitely a very interesting character from a design standpoint, for sure.
And then also from a story standpoint, we don't get all of it in this movie, but
there's very little of it in this one, at least from what I remember. I assume they go more into it in the third one.
A lot more, yeah. But like one of the big things we learn here is that he's the eternal captain of the Flying Dutchman because he has his heart sealed away in this chest. And so whoever stabs the heart kills Davy Jones and presumably frees the Dutchman.
Yeah, which is definitely very unusual, but fitting for a Pirates movie.
Yeah.
And just the fact that I do like that they incorporated the Flying Dutchman and Davy Jones Locker into this.
Yeah.
That's fun. I'm surprised that the SpongeBob version of the Flying Dutchman isn't in this.
Just get the green ghost guy out.
Maybe Davy Jones is what Mr. Krabs would have turned into if he had his soul taken.
Yeah. Well, you have to keep in mind there is an actual Davy Jones in SpongeBob.
He has like a gym locker with like dirty socks.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I remember.
It's also just Davy Jones the singer.
Oh, from the Monkees? Did they really do
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, they got him in a cameo role for it.
That's funny.
And he's singing I'm a Daydream Believer in his appearance.
Yeah, I do like Davy Jones as a villain. He's definitely he is memorable. He's one of the more memorable villains from this series, mostly because of the design, though, to be honest. Like, I do enjoy Barbossa a little bit more as a villain, I would say, though, but, you know, I mean, really, there's really only two memorable Pirates of the Caribbean villains to choose from.
Yeah. Which is sad because Blackbeard had a lot of potential.
Blackbeard, yeah. I don't remember much about Blackbeard.
Like, his introduction was cool when he has, like, the flaming beard and all of that, and he's got the voodoo cutlass. But then I don't remember what he does for the rest of the movie.
And then Salazar, I only remember what he looks like. And that's mostly because he's played by Javier Bardem.
Yeah.
A waste of his talents, if you ask me. I was surprised, though, that Barbossa is in, like, every single one of the movies. Like, I forgot.
Yeah, he just barely makes it into this one, but...
I forgot he was in the fourth one and the fifth one, actually.
Well, he's pretty important in the fifth one.
Yeah, I haven't rewatched any of the ones past the second one yet, so... and we're only doing the first three on the podcast, at least that's what we agreed to. I've thought about... I don't know, maybe I will, maybe I won't rewatch. I find it funny how nonchalant Jack is about having to steal another person's soul.
Not just that, he's so willing to just sell 100 people's souls to Davy Jones.
Like Davy Jones even, like, asks him if he's, like, okay with having, like, an innocent person's, like, soul on his hands, or, like... And he barely even hesitates when he's asked. He's like, oh, yeah, sure. I thought that was funny.
Can you condemn an innocent man, a friend to a lifetime of servitude in your name, while you roam free? Yep, I'm good with it.
I'll probably try to find the actual clips to put in there, because I'm not sure if that's a good or bad Davy Jones impression. And again, I like the setting of this movie too. How it combines these, like, old seaports and ships with fantasy elements. Like, these feel like stories you'd hear an old sailor tell at a saloon. Obviously with a lot of embellishment, because, you know, I don't know how many sailors encounter octopus crab men, or
the Kraken,
or like skeleton crews, literal skeleton crews. Although, at least with the Kraken, I mean, maybe they saw a giant squid, so that's at least sort of plausible compared to the other ones. That's what they assume people were talking about when they saw Krakens. But anyway.
Yeah.
I like the fight in the saloon. It's just this big fight, like, just everybody's like, and Jack's just walking around casually during all this chaos. And he even, like, he's like switches hats with a guy at one point.
Yeah, because he loses his captain's hat at the beginning of the movie, trying to run away from the Kraken, and so during this scene he's like trying to steal a new one.
Yeah. That was a good scene.
We were also introduced to a new sort of minor antagonist, Lord Cutler Beckett of the East India Trading Company. And they're not huge in this movie, but they become, like, basically the main antagonist of the third one, from what I remember.
Yeah, I don't remember much of Beckett in this movie. He sort of felt like Norrington, but not as good in this. At least that's
Although it is interesting getting the East India Trading Company to be in the movie, especially as a villain. Because they're a pretty good contrast to the pirates, who are shown to be, like, you know, sort of free and, like, able to roam wherever they want. Whereas then you have the very militant East India Trading Company cracking down on all of them.
That was kind of the thing with these movies. Is on one hand you have the pirates, and on the other hand you got the British.
Yeah.
There's one good part where Davy Jones plays the organ with his tentacles.
Yeah, his face tentacles.
That's a very memorable image that is permanently seared in my mind. Shows that, hey, he may be an undead monster, but he has feelings too.
Yeah. I wonder how long he practiced the organ to get to the point where he could just play it with his face tentacles.
Yeah. Technically it's his beard, he's playing it with his beard. Oh man, I wish I could do that with my beard. I also like how when Jack meets Elizabeth again, he tells one of his crewmen to hide the rum.
Yeah. Yeah, speaking of Elizabeth, we haven't talked about her and Will yet, but they sort of have their own plot going on alongside this. Because Will initially sets out so he can steal Jack's compass, but then he has to go on the Dutchman, and he finds his dad there, so then he's trying to free his dad. Then Elizabeth busts out, she tries to go and find Will, so she has to go find Jack. So then she has to go find the chest. It gets very convoluted very fast.
I was gonna mention that more when we got to the cons, but I will say though, I did find the scenes with Will and Bootstrap interesting.
Yes, especially the dice game, the Liar's Dice.
Oh my god, yeah! Like, why would you play a game of? Like, why would you gamble with Davy Jones? I mean, that's just asking for hell.
It's just a bad idea.
Yeah, and he gets like Bootstrap gets like permanently sentenced to like
for an eternity of servitude. Well, that one was really bad.
And but Will was only doing that just because he wanted to find the key to the chest.
Yeah, which is hidden under his beard. I also like how Davy Jones sleeps at his organ.
Oh gosh. Is that like his alarm clock? Is he like trips and falls on the keys or something? Jesus, that would hurt waking up like that. This is also where we learn about more about Jack's compass. Because in the first movie, they make jokes about how it doesn't point north.
Yeah.
Whereas in this one, we find out it points to what Jack wants most, or whoever's holding it, I guess.
Yeah. And something interesting that I hadn't really picked up on before, so Beckett at one point is trying to talk about how he wants that compass with Elizabeth.
If only he had the compass to find the compass.
Yeah. But he also mentions some of the stuff from the first movie, and it sounds like he believes it. Because he's talking about how he doesn't want to find some ancient cursed gold. So it's interesting that somehow he knows about the first movie and that he believes it all happened.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like Norrington would.
No.
He probably does now, though, now that he's been on Jack's crew. Another thing about this movie I forgot about is... So, I remember a lot of Disney DVDs starting with, like, a trailer.
I know the exact line you're about to say.
Okay, thank you. I'm glad you know what I'm talking about. There was, like, a bunch of clips from different movies, and they would always start with Jack Sparrow saying,
"We have our heading."
Yep, no, I heard that, and I was like, oh, I've heard that so many times.
Yeah, and I forgot it was from this one in particular. And that's followed by Peter Pan saying, "Here we go!"
Yep.
For some reason, they play the music from Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. I've seen that fucking trailer so many times.
Yeah, I found the trailer, like, instantly.
Yeah, I like, went looking for it, like, a few days ago, and I'm like, oh my god, I remember this. I'm sure anybody who remembers those old Disney DVDs knows what I'm talking about. So. I also think the camera work in this is really good.
Yeah.
Maybe slightly better than the first, actually. Again, you get the sense of scope.
Yeah.
With the movie, it feels like this big, epic, like,
adventure, yeah.
And also remember, shooting a movie at sea is really fucking hard.
Yeah.
Just ask Steven Spielberg. And they had to actually film this on, like, boats and stuff, so I'm like, oh my god.
I don't remember, is it... Because there's, like, one of them where you can see, like, a plane or a helicopter in the background while they're out at sea. And I don't remember if it's this one or the third one.
I don't remember. I don't remember that. I think in, like, Braveheart, there's, like, one part where you can see, like, coffee cups in the background. I also thought this had better color grading than the first one.
Yeah, it's not quite as desaturated as that one.
Yeah. Although it does kind of fall for, like, the, blue and, like, gold color scheme that a lot of movies were using around that time. Live Free or Die Hard being a culprit of that as well. But I thought it suited the darker tone.
Yeah.
I like whenever the Kraken destroys a ship in this. That's pretty fun.
Yeah.
Especially towards the end. It's just insane. Like...
Yeah.
There's like, okay, the climax of this movie, it just turns into just non-stop action, because there's like a big fight on the beach.
Yeah, no, that beach fight is amazing, especially once they get, like, the water wheel, and they're, like, fighting on top of it. And it's rolling down a hill.
And before that, they were, like, fighting in a bell tower.
Yeah.
And on top of buildings. Yeah, they definitely went all out with the stunts in this one. And they also did a good job of, what a lot of movies fail at is including comedy during action scenes.
Yeah.
Because usually it comes across as too silly, but here I thought it fits, so, you know. But then, okay, you have that huge sword fight on the beach, which turns into them sword fighting on a bell tower, which turns into them sword fighting on a rolling wheel, which turns into a huge ship battle.
Where Davy Jones has, like, these rotating guns.
Which then turns into the Kraken attacking said boats. It's just insane. Like,
I love when they're fighting the Kraken. And Elizabeth's like, we have to fire the rum into all the gunpowder. And everyone just stares at her like, do we have to get rid of the rum?
Yeah, why is the rum always gone? But yeah, the stuff with the Kraken was great.
Hey, I like how the Kraken spits Jack's hat back at him.
Oh, yeah. Right before swallowing him up.
Yeah.
That shot of him pulling out the sword and, like, attacking the Kraken right as it's getting him, that's a good shot.
Yeah.
That was one area where some of the CGI on the Kraken is a little dated, but, like, aside from that, I think the effects in this hold up really well.
Yeah.
It's just crazy seeing, like, those huge tentacles just, like, destroying this boat and stuff. At one point, Davy Jones says, "I am the sea." And the line and the way he said it even sounded like Palpatine when he says, "I am the Senate."
You're right.
I think one of my favorite Davy Jones quotes in this is when he said,
Life is cruel. Why should the afterlife be any different?
Life is cruel. Why should the afterlife be any different?
that sounds more like Sean Connery than Davy Jones.
I know, he's slowly becoming more and more Scottish. It's a Smith & Wesson, and you've had your 6.
I should have mailed it to the Marx Brothers. This is a new experience for me.
This is a new experience for me.
In the end, there can be only one. Okay, we should probably get moving. But yeah, you mentioned there was like kind of a love triangle going on.
And it's not very good or interesting, really.
Although there was one funny scene that came out of this between Jack and Elizabeth.
Yeah.
Where Jack offers to marry her, which she does not appreciate at all. Although she does eventually admit during this scene that he's a good man, which, that's interesting.
Because you and I are alike. And there will come a moment when you have a chance to show it. To do the right thing.
I love those moments. I like to wave at them as they pass by.
It's a good line. And that scene kind of reminded me of a scene between Han and Kira in Solo: A Star Wars Story, which, wait, that's another Disney movie.
Oh, yeah, no, there's, yeah. Yeah.
The scene where they're in the closet with the capes, it kind of reminded me of that. Also, somewhere in my house, I have Happy Meal toys with the chest and Davy Jones.
That's an interesting Happy Meal toy.
Yeah. Because again, these movies were like really huge at one point. One thing this movie has is a lot of running and chasing.
Yeah.
There's so much running and chasing in this movie. It's ridiculous. Especially towards the end with like the beach scene and stuff. I like how when they're distracted, like, Jack, Will, and Norrington are like sword fighting, so they're too distracted to like keep track of the chest, so then Mackenzie Crook and the other guy end up stealing it and running away. Another thing I wrote, is it just me or are there way more pirates in this one than the first?
Dude, there are so many pirates in this movie.
It is ridiculous.
Another thing I like, so at one point early on when they first go and visit the voodoo lady, Jack gets like a jar of dirt to carry around with him. And so he tries to at first hide the heart in the jar of dirt.
That's
but eventually gets stolen, but he doesn't know it. So at the end when Davy Jones is trying to catch him with the Flying Dutchman, he's like waving around the jar of dirt. It's going,
"Come to negotiate, eh? Have you slimy git? Look what I got. I got a jar of dirt. I got a jar of dirt. And guess what's inside it?"
Yep, that was funny.
Apparently that scene there was improvised, so a lot of people's reactions were genuine.
I imagine Johnny Depp improvised a lot of scenes in these.
From what I've heard, it sounds like almost the entire movie was just one big improv thing.
They probably just followed him around while he was just doing his thing. I feel like there's some actors where that's just what they do. Like, I feel like with most Nicolas Cage movies, they secretly just filmed him just doing whatever.
Like in Ghost Rider when he's eating from the goblet of gummy bears.
Or in Wicker Man when he steals the bike.
Yeah. Well, what was that movie where Christopher Walken talked about pie? Because that's another one of those.
Geely, I have no doubt that scene had.
He thought they were done rolling, so he just said it.
Because if you watch that scene and just watch that scene, the rest of the movie isn't worth it. The conversation before he says that has nothing to do with pie. It's so weird.
Get me a big bowl. Pie, some ice cream on it. Good. Put some on your head. Your tongue would slap your brains out trying to get to it. Interested? Sure.
Have I mentioned you can tell that this one cost more to make than the first one?
Oh, yeah.
Because they really went all out with this one. Like, that was something when I was rewatching the first one, it felt sort of small compared to this movie. Like, not as much happens in the first movie as in this. And also there's less, like, sets and, like, the action scenes, I guess they're, like, the most elaborate they give with the action scenes in the first one, I guess, is that, like, steel mill fight, or when Jack's, like, swinging around us. Whereas here you got that ridiculous chase scene at the beginning with him on on the sticks, or the water he's like rolling around in a wheel at one point. Like Will and Norrington are fighting on top of it, and he's like stuck in the wheel while it's rolling around. I don't know how many of the stunts Johnny Depp did, but Jesus Christ. Whoever did do the stunts in this movie really deserves a raise, because wow.
Yeah.
And the movie ends with Elizabeth leaving Jack stranded on the ship because the Kraken is only coming after him.
Yep.
And he basically gets dragged down to Davy Jones' locker. It's basically the Han Solo getting frozen in carbonite moment of this trilogy.
Yeah. And the movie basically ends with them deciding they're going to go save Captain Jack, and then Barbossa shows up.
Yep. That part made me smile when I saw Barbossa again. I'm like, yay, it's Barbossa. I love that guy.
We even see him eating an apple. Like he said in the first movie, how the first thing he's going to do is eat a whole bushel of apples.
Yeah, now that he can finally taste things again and not feel like he's starving to death.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty good cliffhanger, too. Like, I wanted to watch the next movie immediately afterwards, but I didn't. Partly because it's super fucking long.
Isn't it like 3 hours?
Almost. It's almost 3 hours. It's like 2 hours, 49 minutes or something like that. It's ridiculous. I'll get around to rewatching it eventually. Probably tomorrow. I'll probably watch it tomorrow. But yeah, it sort of is like The Empire Strikes Back, where you got like one of the main characters goes to an uncertain fate, and the main villain is still alive. So clearly they're like setting things up for a third movie.
Yeah.
Obviously this isn't as good as The Empire Strikes Back, but to be fair, I don't know very many movies that are better than The Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah.
So, I also forgot that there's end credit scenes in these movies, like after credit scenes in these movies.
I didn't know there was an after credit scene.
I forgot about this, but I was remembering that the fourth movie had one, so I was like, oh, wait a minute, does this movie have one? So I went back and looked. In this one, it's like the dog from the beginning of the movie is on the island with the cannibals, and they basically have him on the throne that Jack was sitting on. So I guess they consider... I guess dog is God spelled backwards. So
yeah.
It's fitting. But that also begs the question, are they going to eat the dog or something? Like, what? I guess if you want to get into the... You didn't know there was an after credits scene?
I didn't know there was after credits scene.
I don't know what... I don't remember what... I think the first one, it was the zombie monkey or something. And then I don't know what the other ones are. I think the fifth one, I think, has Davy Jones in it. I remember when I was watching some reviews of it, I noticed that they mentioned Davy Jones in the after credits scene.
Really?
Yeah. You don't remember that?
Hold on, no,
Granted, the fifth one is very forgettable, so I wouldn't have remembered either.
Hold on, I need... Oh, okay. So it's like Will and Elizabeth are just sharing a bed, and then you see the silhouette of Davy Jones enter the room. Huh.
Granted, it's been a while since I've seen the third movie, but I'm pretty sure they kill him or something. I mean...
Yeah, no, they do.
He's the main villain. I would assume that they killed him. So, I don't remember how. Well, I can kind of guess, but...
Now, we're probably not going to get the sixth one, but that's a whole other can of worms.
You want to get into the cons, then?
Yeah, so I think...
I do have some cons with this one. Same with, I did with the first one as well, so...
So, I think, again, it's a very long movie.
Yes.
Because I specifically remember I was having a great time with it. I hit that final, the boat fight right before the Kraken shows up. And, like, the boat fight was, like, underway... And I was like, oh, so, there's like, 10, 15 minutes left? And I checked and there was another half hour of the movie left. I was like, oh!
It is ridiculous how many, like, action scenes there are, like, during the final stretch of the movie. Like, it just goes on so long. And you're just like, okay, this is a little excessive.
And I think also, like we mentioned, the love triangle... is a little weird, and the story gets a bit complicated at points.
They gave Elizabeth and Will more to do in this movie. Then they already weren't that interesting in the first movie, so giving them more to do in this one doesn't help. The stuff with Will meeting his dad is kind of cool, but really that's about as much character development as you get for Will. And then Elizabeth, she's like a stowaway on the ship, I guess. Okay. Why do we need to bring these two characters back when they weren't one of the better parts about the first movie? And they're in the third one, too.
Yeah.
Well, I don't remember if they're better or worse in that one, but...
From what I remember, they're better in that one. They at least get some resolution in that one.
That is true, like the worst kind of resolution, though. For them, at least.
Yeah.
I also thought Beckett was kind of boring.
He didn't do a lot in this one. He showed up for like 2 scenes.
He's barely in it, and he really just felt like a not as good version of Norrington.
Yeah. From what I remember, he does get a lot better in the third one, but yeah, he doesn't do hardly anything.
And Norrington, I didn't love Norrington, but I thought he had some funny moments with Jack where he's like being super condescending towards him. So, and apparently the role of Beckett was offered to Ricky Gervais, which I'd have loved to have seen that version. That would have been fun.
Oh, that'd be so weird.
It wouldn't have fit at all, or maybe it would have, I don't know, but that's not the role you would put him in.
No, you'd put him in, like, one of the joke pirate roles.
You'd pull him, you'd pair, the logical thing to do would be pair him up with Mackenzie Crook. They already worked together on the British version of The Office.
Oh, that's right.
Get Martin Freeman in there as well. Might as well.
Was Martin Freeman the guy that played, like, the gym equivalent?
Yes, and he's also Bilbo in the Hobbit movies.
Yeah.
And he's in some of the Cornetto movies. He's in Hot Fuzz.
He's in the MCU.
In the World's End. Oh, that's right. Yeah, he's in Black Panther.
Yeah.
I forgot about that. I tend to forget about Black Panther, though, to be fair. Another problem I have is this movie is very expository.
Yeah.
They introduce so many new characters and new plot trajectories, and it gets a bit hard to process all this information. I feel like the first one, the plot was simple enough, and they maybe stretched it out a little bit too much. But with this one, it's kind of the opposite problem. They're trying to put a little bit too much plot.
Yeah. There's one moment
the beginning of this movie was honestly kind of painful at some points, trying to follow what's going on.
There's one point that, while I do find it funny, I think it does sort of highlight this problem. It's when that three-way fight is going on, and Mackenzie and the other pirate have to stand there and basically tell the audience, just remind them why they're all fighting and what they're doing this for.
Yeah, that was some very lazy writing. Although, yeah, that was kind of funny, admittedly. It's just, that was some very, lazy exposition on there.
Because it was basically hey, just in case you fell asleep, this is what they were doing the whole movie. It was
kind of helpful to me, because I sort of forgot why they were all fighting over it. I know why Jack is... I don't really remember. I guess Will, because of his dad.
Jack wanted it so that the Kraken wouldn't come after it. Norrington wanted it so he could get a promotion.
Oh, yeah, that's right, because he's an asshole. And he's the one that ends up getting it and, turning it into Beckett. So now he controls Davy Jones, and he de facto controls the seas, so...
Yeah.
Oh, that's gonna be a bit of a problem in the third movie, I assume. That'd be funny if they just completely dropped that plot line.
They just disappear.
Beckett doesn't even show up in the third movie. Oh my god. But yeah, this movie, it just... I liked that the first one kept the plot pretty simple, and while that one did also have pacing issues, it felt more focused than this one. This movie felt too needlessly convoluted, and part of it might be because it's setting up a lot of stuff for the third film, so... Although, I assume the third film is also really confusing, so...
Yeah, because then they have to go and quickly tie everything up. That's why it's 3 hours.
Yeah. I kind of wish these movies were more self-contained, like Indiana Jones or James Bond.
I mean, they get that way eventually.
They do with the fourth and fifth ones, yeah. Well, sort of, because the fifth one, Will is also in that one, but his son is a main character. I've relearned quite a bit from watching reviews of these movies. I was going, oh wow, I forgot about a lot of these plot points, actually. Well, to be fair, the fifth one is a very forgettable movie, so... Another thing, it takes a while for the main villain to show up in this movie.
Yeah. And really for the main plot to show up, because we spend the beginning busting out of the prison, then we spend half an hour on this island.
Yep. Davy Jones doesn't show up until almost the hour mark.
Wow.
That's a long time to wait for your main villain, although they do at least mention him.
Yeah, they give him build up.
It's sort of like with Count Dooku in Attack the Clones, now that I think about it.
Hmm.
Although he gets more screen time than Count Dooku in this.
Yeah.
And in Revenge of the Sith, because he doesn't get much screen time in that either. But even after that, like, he doesn't get as much screen time as you would expect from the main villain.
Yeah.
And while I do appreciate that this one included more world building, it got kind of excessive at points. That's really probably where the main problem with this movie lies, is just excess. And from what I remember, the third one gets even worse with this problem. Because the third one's running time is even more bloated. There's even more new characters in that one. And more new plot lines, but anyway. Also, the tone in this one is a lot more serious.
Yeah, no, I think like probably the scenes that had the best balance were the stuff on the Cannibal Island, but it is overall just a lot darker.
Yeah, the first one was definitely a lot, like, it was funnier and had a lighter tone. The stakes weren't as high either.
Yeah.
In the first one, all you have to deal with is the British and undead skeleton pirates. Basically.
And like, what's the worst case scenario if Barbossa won? You know, all of the pirates become mortal. That's really it.
Honestly, the villains are actually pretty sympathetic in that first movie.
Yeah.
In that regard.
They become less of a threat if they win.
True. Yeah. Wow, that's a weird thing to think about. I think my biggest con with this movie, though, and you're probably gonna agree with this, is that the jar of dirt doesn't get enough screen time.
No, it needed its own. You know how like David Lynch will just like focus on an object for like 5 minutes? We needed that with the jar of dirt.
Yeah, the jar of dirt, my favorite character in this movie, and of course, gets no lines. What a disgrace.
I forget, does the jar of dirt show back up in the third one?
I don't remember, dude. I probably remember even less about the third movie than you do. It's been so long since I've seen the third movie. Although again, I was like watching reviews of it and going, "Oh, this is a weirder movie than I remembered." At least from what I saw, anyway. Do you have anything else to add?
I think those were all my big ones.
That's all I have, really, is, we can get into overall thoughts if you want.
Yeah.
I thought this is a good sequel.
Yeah, it keeps up a lot of what made the first one great. It's weird. It has a nice blend of this sort of, pirate world with fantasy. Great effects. We didn't really talk about the music much, but the music is great. Again,
it was pretty good. Hans Zimmer. Of course, the main theme shows up in the movie.
Yeah.
Very catchy main theme. And Davy Jones gets a good theme as well.
Yeah. All of the actors, again, are just fantastic. You totally buy them in their roles.
Yeah, Johnny Depp, he's still great as Jack Sparrow. He definitely drives the plot of this one more.
Yeah.
Davy Jones, of course, great design. I kind of wish he had more to do, though. It's been a while since I've seen the third one. I assume he does more in that one.
Yeah, he does a lot more from what I remember.
Because I remember he has that sword fight where he's like up on the sails with Jack.
Yeah.
I actually wasn't sure if that was in this one or the third one. I figured it was in the third one. But it's been so long since I've seen that one that I kind of forgot. Yeah, I enjoyed the movie. It's not perfect, but it's fun to watch.
Yeah.
It has what I liked about the first one, and also more, sometimes to its detriment. The plot is a bit all over the place, but I got used to it after a while.
Yeah.
I would say the first movie is a bit better, but I actually think this one's almost as good. I might have enjoyed parts of it a little bit more, actually. I think when I look at it as a whole, the first one's better, but like there's scenes in this one that I enjoy more than some of the scenes in the first movie, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. And like they are pretty close movies for me, like in terms of which one I like better. I think the original just barely edges it out because, you know, I like Barbossa, and then like you said, it's kept a little simpler in its own standalone thing.
I think Barbossa helps the first one, and also it feels more focused than this.
Yeah.
Like stuff on the Cannibal Island, that's great, and all the fight scenes at the end, it's so ridiculous. Like it's not as funny or quotable as the first one, but it does feel more action packed and epic.
Yeah,
which I like, and it has a cool aesthetic too. It has this like it feels like a lived in, breathed in world. Like all these weird pirates and like crab creatures or whatever the fuck.
Like sea people.
Sea people, yeah. It definitely feels more weird and idiosyncratic than the first one, which I like, you know. I kind of appreciate that this one just went all out with the weirdness in some regards. Like it's maybe a little too uncompromising, but you know, I kind of respect that about it. But the problems I have with it, they're basically that some of them are the same as the first. Those being, it's a bit too long. Some of the supporting cast are kind of boring, and well, Orlando Bloom and Keira Knightley mainly, but
yeah,
and they definitely get overshadowed by Jack Sparrow. I wonder, why aren't they in the fourth one? I think because the second and third ones carry over characters and plot points, I kind of mix parts of the two movies up a little bit. So it'll be interesting rewatching the third one. I'm still kind of worried about the third one, I'll be real. Because I haven't rewatched it yet, but I've watched a few reviews of these movies recently. It looks fucking weird.
Yeah, that's what I really remember, is that, especially some of the stuff at the beginning, it's pretty bizarre.
It looks like the trippiest of the Pirates movies, and also, it's super fucking long. It's like...
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. I am looking forward to seeing Keith Richards as a pirate, though.
I'm excited to see him.
So there's that. And you get Barbossa in it more, so there's that. Chow Yun-Fat's in it, so there's some stuff to look forward to. It's just, how much is that 3-hour running time going to affect things? That's the...
Yeah. I suppose until next time, drink up, me hearties, and play the Andy Griffith.
Excuse me, I have to go. Somewhere there is a crime happening. I have to go now. My planet needs me.
Good night, you stupid idiot. Good night, you miserable slob.